Welcome back to the Cozy Rosy Crochet channel, and today I'm going to be answering one of those all-important questions I get asked all the time. Can I take my crochet on a plane? We're going to be covering how you can transport your current project safely, which projects are best to take and work on whilst you're away, and how you can avoid getting your crochet hooks confiscated when you're going through security. So let's jump right in. One of the best parts about crochet is, of course, how transportable it is. We really don't need much to be working on our project. We only need our yarn and our hook. If you are traveling, we need to think about some of those accessories as we're going through security, but we're going to cover that topic a little bit later. First and foremost, let's talk about how we're going to be transporting our yarn and how we're going to transport our current project. Something you need to consider is, of course, how you are traveling to your holiday, be it on a train, in a car, or if you're going to be jetting off somewhere. If you're traveling in a car or you're just staying within the same country that is drivable, you can of course take as much yarn and as many tools as you like, as long as you can fit it inside that vehicle. If you are traveling in a plane, there are a few things we need to be considered. For me personally, the easiest way to transport my current project is keeping it in a dedicated project pouch. And you don't have to spend lots of money, unless you want to, on putting it in something that's going to keep your yarn secure, your hook clean, and of course that all important yarn clean as well. If you're as clumsy as me, spillages happen and I do not want to get any coffee on my yarn. The easiest way that I found to keep my project all together, along with the dedicated hook I'm using for that project, is just grabbing a simple Ziploc bag. This is not a Ziploc, obviously that's a brand. This is actually the IKEA version, and they come in numerous sizes. This is a 4.5 litre, and it's got two 100 gram balls of Aran weight yarn, the same as worsted, and my hook. This is ideal to keep the project together, keep all the yarn I need together to keep working on my current project all neat and tidy without anything getting tangled up. If you do struggle with your yarn tangling when you move it, if you're using something finer like a lace weight or even a 4-ply, I'd recommend getting something like a dedicated yarn sock. If you haven't heard of them, they are great tools. They keep the ball together, and ideal if you're centre pulling, because it will ensure the cake that you're working from doesn't collapse. If you're going on to a method of transport and you've got multiple bags and you want to take multiple projects, or there are multiple balls of yarn involved in your project, I would recommend only carrying what you need to work on the current section in your hand luggage. That way you're not weighed down by taking too much or taking up too much space in your hand luggage. Obviously the more budget-friendly airlines will ensure that you have minimal hand luggage. And of course you're paying for your checked luggage as well sometimes, so you don't want to be overloading and thinking you're going to make a whole blanket whilst you're away. So keep it realistic on how much you can actually use as you're traveling. How many hours you're going to travel for will ensure you can minimize the amount of yarn that you're traveling with. This kind of bag is also really useful to keep your darning needle and maybe a very small pair of scissors or your cutting implement, which we'll come up to next, so you can keep it all together in one pouch. If you're checking more yarn and more tools in your checked luggage, you can keep everything in a separate pouch so that it doesn't get mixed up with your wash bag or get lost in amongst your undies. So it's good to keep it all together in one smaller pouch that you can get your hands on easily. What I would recommend is keeping your crochet project simple whilst you're away. You don't want to be having to drag out your pattern and search for where you are. You don't want to be having to faff about with changing colours too constantly. If anything, a nice simple pattern repeat is a great project for when you're away. I like to make granny squares, hexagons, maybe even some washcloths while I'm away, so that I can use them quite quickly as soon as they're finished, and that amount of yarn isn't going to take up huge space in my luggage or in my hand luggage. Depending on the time of year, or if you're getting ready for winter, you could even consider making some fingerless gloves, maybe a couple of beanies, something nice and simple that's not going to take up too much room when it's finished in your luggage either. Think about the size of the project that you're going to be working on when you are in your cabin space. Do be aware that there are going to be other people around you. Your movements and the repetitive movements of your crochet might not be very well wanted by that stranger who sat next to you if you're constantly moving your arms to get those stitches done. Keep your project small when you're in a confined space. Of course, if you're traveling business, go for it. You can whip out a whole blanket in those long 7.5 hours, 11 hours that you're in that plane for if you want to. So let's talk about that big question of taking your hooks through security. When travelling to and from many countries, including the US, the UK and within the EU, crochet hooks are generally allowed into the cabin. My biggest recommendation is to opt for an aluminium hook or a wooden crochet hook, even a plastic one, so that you're not trying to carry steel hooks through the security. Obviously, those teeny tiny steel hooks are not a good idea to go through security because they are incredibly small, incredibly sharp, and they could be considered a weapon. Small rounded scissors under 4 inches in length, that's the points, are generally allowed into the cabin as well. I personally don't put scissors in my hand luggage because there's just no need. There are alternatives that we can use. I would tend to go for a yarn cutter. This is like you can wear on a pendant around your neck, or in most cases, I will have a pack of dental floss in my bag that I can use to snip my yarn as and when I need to. Do be aware that when you are going through security, the security decisions can vary from agent to agent and even airport to airport. I would always recommend checking your airline security policy and the airports, plural, that you are traveling from. Check it at both ends. For those that are traveling to and from the US, go ahead and check the TSA website. For those of us in the UK or travelling to and from the UK, you can go ahead and check the gov.uk travel section. I've linked both of those for you below in the description box so you can find them easily. There is always a risk that security can take your crochet hook off of you. For that reason, I would highly recommend taking a crochet hook with you in your hand luggage that is not your favourite. I know it's going to hold you up when you're making your project, but it is not worth the risk of losing that perfect crochet hook that you love for the sake of taking it in your hand luggage. I'd always recommend packing your favourite hooks in your checked luggage so that you can use them when you get to your destination, rather than risk someone taking it from you. Of course, if you are challenged when you're carrying a crochet hook, just be fair and free and hand it over. It's only a crochet hook. Even your most loved crochet hook can be replaced. It is not worth getting an argument and being taken off the flight. For me personally, I have flown a number of times with my crochet hook. I actually don't tend to crochet on the plane. I tend to crochet more while I'm waiting to board, just to kind of keep me calm. I'm not the world's best flyer, but this is why I will generally have a pony hook or like a slightly cheaper version of my favourite soft grip hooks in with my current project, and then in my checked luggage I will have my absolute faves ready for when I get to my destination. Let me know in the comments if you have ever successfully travelled with your crochet, and of course if you had any issues with security, if you have lost your favourite crochet hooks when travelling. The more we share, the more that we can be aware. Be specific, let me know which airport you were travelling to and from, and if you lost your hooks, please warn us so that we don't go through the same pain. I hope this video does give you the confidence to travel with your crochet. I have successfully travelled a number of times. I've just come back from Toronto and successfully taken my crochet hooks through security both ways, travelling from Heathrow all the way out to Toronto Pearson Airport. So there was no issues at all having my crochet hooks in my hand luggage. Don't forget to like this video and of course subscribe, hitting that notification bell so that you can be made aware when the next video in the travel crochet series releases, where I'm going to be sharing some ideal projects with you to take on the plane.